You know, measles was declared eradicated in the US in the year 2000, but last year there were 644 reported cases. Did you know that 40% of Australians don't know how long it takes for the Earth to go around the Sun? Gun homicide rates are 20 times higher in the US than in most OECD countries.
Why are you telling me this?
So coming up to the end of my PhD, whenever anyone asks about my research, I often end up venting about the frustrations of my experiments not working because I'm going to need some publications in order to get a job after my PhD. And whenever I complain to people about my failed experiments, they tend to always respond in the same way. They tend to say, well sure, the experiment doesn't work, but that's still publishable information. I mean, if you don't make that information public, then someone else might spend time and money trying the same thing that you already know doesn't work. Which of course is a relevant point, but it's a little more complicated than that. I'll tell you quite simply, we don't publish negative data. Now keep in mind what we mean by the term negative data. So if you run an experiment to see if there's a correlation between two factors and you find there isn't one, that's not negative data. Many medical studies involve this kind of result, and this is extremely important data.
Vaccination doesn't cause autism.
What I mean by negative data is experiments where you were trying to produce a particular outcome, but the methodology you were using didn't get that outcome to occur. For example, I'm setting up a reaction right now which, based on my knowledge of chemistry, should join two molecules together. Now if this doesn't work, I've gained new information, the knowledge that this method won't produce my desired outcome. This is what we call negative data. No, I won't publish it. There are many reasons why we don't publish negative data, and most of them are to do with practicality. This data is only about 1 in 10 experiments give us publishable data, while about 3 in 10 experiments give us negative data. Most journals have publication acceptance rates of about 5 to 30%, which means that of the publishable data that researchers are generating right now, about 70% of it doesn't even get published. So if we're not currently publishing results of experiments that do work, then how could we possibly accommodate the extra 300% of experiments that don't work? The reason that we produce so many results that don't get published are because of the constraints of scientific publishing. You need editors to check the material and other researchers to read through the articles and decide if they're scientifically rigorous, and all of this costs time and money and people. And with the constantly growing amount of data that we're producing thanks to increased computing power and time-saving technology, thank you Internet, the journals have plenty of choice when it comes to which articles to publish. These journals are businesses. I mean, the way they make money is by publishing articles that people will want to read and that other people will cite, which is much less likely if you're publishing negative data. The other major problem is human fallibility. If a researcher from halfway around the world reports an experiment not working, do you trust them? What if they had a bad reagent, or set the reaction up wrong, or had some small, indetectable contaminant? What if they're just bad at their job? There's no way for you to know this. There are so many different ways in which something can go wrong, but really only a limited set of conditions in which it can go right. So what if someone incorrectly reports an experiment doesn't work when really it does? So that means everyone who reads this error doesn't try the experiment, and then that knowledge is lost forever. Well, what about the reverse? So there have been instances where somebody falsely claims something does work when really it doesn't, but in that case, generally lots of people try to replicate it, and when they find out they can't, that person's career is kind of over.
Hey Stan, do you know who Andrew Wakefield is?
So that's why we don't publish negative data. I know it's a good idea in theory, but a lot of things are good in theory and sadly unmanageable in the real world.
A bit like your original PhD plan, eh?
Mind, some of us are trying to work here.
Hey Stan, do you know that the bird is the one?
Why do I even...
Which was again today?